Welcome back, rock stars. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most powerful shifts that you can make in your business. Learning to think in a way that possibly could allow you to get 390 years worth of work done in 1 hour. The idea here is really simple. It's how do you amplify actions, not take more actions, right? So it's crucial to understand that nuance there. It's not about grinding harder or stuffing more tasks into your day. It's really about creating results that go far beyond the time and energy you personally put into it. And when you start to look at things through that lens, productivity is no longer a linear type situation. It really becomes exponential. And the really cool part is this is not theory. It's the difference between always feeling maxed out and finally experiencing some time freedom. And so I'd like to unpack with you guys today what leverage could look like for you and how you can begin to build those amplifiers into your business today. So if you guys are on board for that, let's dive in.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we rise above. No more feeling sad, we're fueled by love. Our small business is shining, reaching new heights. With the support of our success group, we're taking flight. The power is strong, the vision's so clear. Building our dreams with no more fear. Together we're resilient, unstoppable force. With our success group.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Well, let me set the scene here really quick for you. We're going to talk first with the plant section, the mindset, and maybe a little reflection here. But small business owners, right? We were raised, I don't know about you, but I truly believe a lot of people were raised this way with this idea that success comes from more hours, more grind, more hard work, outworking the next person, competition, right? And while those are all very good traits to have, that desire to push and work and kind of pit yourself against other people, the problem with that is that's limited. That's only linear growth, right? You're only one person. There's only so much that you personally can do. So 1 hour of effort equals 1 hour of results. And if you're running your business this way, which I believe most of us are, you already know this. I don't need to tell you, it's exhausting. And it does have a ceiling, right? Time is capped at 24 hours in a day. I know that there's all sorts of claims and whatnot, but the reality is 24 hours is what everybody has. Now, I understand that time can be different for other people, right? Like some people have more responsibilities, different situations, whatever things that are there in front of them in their life. But at the end of the day, no one can add more hours, no matter how much you hustle, right? So what you can do is use things that I call amplifiers. Amplifiers are things that take your effort that you're putting in already, right? That we do want to have that work hard and we do want to have that willingness to take action. But amplifiers take that effort that you put in and they make it go further. They make that effort go further. They let you create results that are bigger than the work that you put in. Now, that is the magic, right? And so it's really an identity shift in a lot of ways. It's instead of identifying as a person who just works a lot, right? I'm a workaholic, right? I like to work a lot. But I want you guys and me to start seeing ourselves as business owners who get it done, right? Like if I can get it done in 5 minutes, then no need to put in the full hour, right? So it starts with that shift of being, I'm a get it done person. Once you've said that's who you are, right? You manage to accomplish a lot more. And not because you're burning out, but because you've built amplifiers into how you operate. And we're going to talk about what those are here in a little bit. But I've got a reflection question for you guys. So in the comments here, whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you're at and wherever you're watching this at, I'd love for you to think about a place where you've been stuck in that linear growth trap, right? More hours, more grind. There's only so much of me to go around is the feeling that you get, right? And just accept it, right? So first and foremost, just accept it. We're not going to poo-poo on it. We're not going to go, oh my gosh, I'm so bad. I don't know how to do this. Like none of that stuff is important. In fact, it's going to stop you from finding the results that you need. So where have you been stuck? Where do you believe that you see some linear growth happening, right? So maybe you're a decorator, right? And maybe you're really busy with production right now. But yet there's only so much of you to go around. You're basically working 10, 12, 15, 16-hour days, right? So whatever that place is, something like that. Or maybe you're somebody trying to make sales and you're just calling people. You're doing all your reach outs on Messenger and everything like that, but you still keep getting the same audience over and over again. You still get the same people that show up for your yoga class and whatnot. And so whatever that is for you, just identify it first and foremost and just accept it, right? Let's not label it good or bad. And I want to be really clear about that, because if you start labeling it good or bad, that's when we lose the opportunity here and to create this amplifier. All right. So once you've accepted that, now this is what I want you to comment. There are no wrong answers here. So what's a creative idea that you could use to amplify that work? That's it, right? No wrong answers. But here's the beauty. If you do participate, if you do engage in this question, you're not only going to start your creative juices flowing because your body says, oh, I'm going to engage. I'm not just going to sit here and listen and consume. I'm actually going to comment. And your subconscious is going to go, oh, well, I need to have a creative idea. And guess what? Creativity is going to start happening. And then you'll post something. But here's where the real benefit comes. Somebody else posts something. There's a new idea. There's a new perspective. We've just crowdsourced some ideas, right? And if you'll say, even if you feel completely stuck and you have no creative ideas, totally fine. Tell me where you're stuck in the comments and I will give you a suggestion. I don't know how I got this superpower. I just thank God that I have it. But to come up with different solutions or different ideas, that is my area of zone of greatness, right? Is what I had to get it right there. So the creativity, that ability to go, what about this, right? I don't know if my answer is going to be right. Your answer, who knows, right? You have to take the action to find out. But the reality is, the more perspective you get, the more opportunities you're going to have for an amplified answer. So where have you been stuck in this linear growth trap? There's only so much of you to go around, the more hours, more work, right? And what are some creative ideas to amplify that work? Now, put that in the comments, and then let's take a look at what that could be, right? Because here's the other side of it. Now we get into the prepare phase. What's our strategy? How can we learn and grow? And the only way that you're going to come up with some creative ideas is you have to be willing to have an open mind to accept it, right? So we'll talk about that in just one second, but let's first define what an amplifier could be, right? And these are just some general ideas. These are not all of the ideas. These are just something to get your creative juices flowing. But amplifiers are things like tools, like systems, like people. Think virtual assistant, think part-time help, right? Just any way that you can multiply the effect of your effort. They're going to turn 1 hour of work into many hours of impact. So when I said last week in the title of this show, you can get 390 hours of work done in 1 hour, right? And actually what the actual quote was, this is from Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, and he said 390 years of work done in 1 hour. Now he wrote in his book and where this came from that he gained 390 years of work through one of his own hours through labor and technology. Right? At the time, he had 750,000 people working for him and a website that was taking orders 24 hours a day. So he calculated that 1 hour's worth of his effort netted him 390 years worth of work with the people that were working for him and the technology and tools that he worked to build. right? And so thinking about it from that aspect, when you think about the effort we put forth and then all of the responsibilities that we have, if we only think about the number of hours it will take, then we're really missing some key opportunities, some key inputs here, because it's not just your time, right? So that hour's worth of energy, that hour's worth of your time has other things that come along with it, right? That hour takes some energy. We're not creative geniuses all day long. At least I'm not, right? Some of us are more creative than others, but we've got to have our downtime, right? We have to have enough energy to be able to get to those creative solutions, right? So that hour is, do you have an hour's worth of energy? Do you have an hour's worth of focus? We were talking with some folks in a mastermind group this last week, and somebody suggested in a video that we had watched, blocking out 90 minutes for focus work. And people were like, oh my gosh, I'd kill for 30 minutes of focus work, right? All the distractions, all of this, right? So, okay. Can you block out that much focus, right? And because the answer wasn't that it was not possible for them to have 90 minutes worth of focus work. The challenge was that they didn't have boundaries. And one of the things that we talked about was, I suggested, well, why don't you schedule in the distractions? Because then you can schedule in your focus time, right? Because when you allow the distractions to happen all the time, they're going to happen all the time until you tell or set up a way, right? Okay, turn off the phone. There is an off button on this, right? You can turn off your notifications. I understand, right? Maybe there's people that are counting on you. Maybe your kids are going to call. Maybe you're watching a parent or something like that. I truly believe that you can get 30 minutes of focus time from them. You could get 90 minutes of focus time from them. Maybe you got to spread it out depending on what the responsibilities are. But the reality is you've got to set some boundaries if that's a struggle for you. So 1 hour's worth of energy, 1 hour's worth of focus. What about money, right? Do you have some money that you could generate that's basically an hour's worth of your work? And ultimately an hour's worth of creativity. And those are the inputs that we need. So let me give you a couple of examples. And as I talked about here, when we make this transition to start thinking about this, we have to be willing to try something that maybe we've said, I just can't do that, right? So as you hear some of these things, can you have an open mind about it, right? One of the biggest ways to create more leverage, more amplifiers in your business is by hiring or delegating, right? And the next thing that most people say is, I can't afford it. Okay. Do you know that 100%? Have you tried? Right? A VA, you can find a VA and you go to osg.link/iworker, right? And you can find a VA there. Try it out for a month. Give it a 30-day trial. See what happens. Yes, you're going to have to pay some money, but can you make that return on investment, right? Maybe it's part-time help. Maybe you're just asking a neighbor, a high school kid or something like that, a neighbor kid to help you out. You can come up with 20, 50 bucks, right? Like however much time they're going to spend with you. Maybe they spend a couple hours with you and you give them $50 or, that's pretty good. That's $25 an hour if they spent 2 hours with you. So maybe it's $20 for 2 hours, right? Whatever that is, maybe it's a production assistant, right? So basically what you're looking for is, can we have somebody else somehow, some way help us, right? And that's going to free you up time from higher value tasks, like figuring out the next creative amplifier, right? And because I know the first thing is I can't afford it. The second thing that stops us is we go, well, I just don't trust anybody else to do it. Okay. Well, so you're saying that nobody else has ever done anything like that, right? Nobody else has ever made that thing. You couldn't teach them. If you're so good at it that you can't trust anybody else, why can't you teach somebody else to be that good at it? Right? Like, and I'm not talking down to you, right? If that's you that has the trust issues, because guess what? I'm looking in the mirror. I have the trust issues. And so this conversation is for myself. But the reality is what is actually causing you to think that way? What are you scared about? Right. And figure that out. So the real question is, are you valuing your time? So that's the first kind of example here. Can you hire or delegate somebody? As Jeff Bezos there, right? 750,000 people working for him. He was able to get 390 years worth of work in 1 hour of his own time, right? He seems to be doing pretty well. Right. I don't have a spaceship that can fly me into outer space. Right. And I'm not saying he's a good guy or anything like that. I'm just saying this is how he got there. Leverage, right? This amplifier idea. The next thing we can think about, right? And again, these are just some ideas. These are not the end all be all list at all, but automation, right? Maybe it's some online scheduling. I mean, just at a very simple way. Like I will write an email to somebody. Maybe it's I'm reaching out to them to see if they want to set up an SVP call. And I know that I'm going to want to follow up with them if I don't hear from them in X amount of days. Right. And so what I normally do is I'll write that email and then I will write a follow-up email and then I will schedule that out. Right. And if they reply to me, then I'll turn off that scheduled email, right? Like it's an if this, then that. So I'm like, just that much simplicity just saved me time because I was already thinking about that person. I was already kind of looking at the steps to how we might help them or work together or whatever that is for you, right? And so I didn't have to then send that email and then a little while later kind of get back into that zone and thinking about them and all that other stuff. I was already in that zone. So set up a couple emails, scheduled them out. Like Gmail, it's super easy to schedule an email. I'm sure the other email providers are the same way to schedule an email. So it could be as simple as that to more complicated, not complicated, like difficult, but a little bit, few more steps than that into, maybe a Zapier type program where these things happen along the way, or you're using an automated system. Maybe it's invoicing software, right? Maybe you've got a regular client and instead of every time regenerating the same invoice, you set up a rule and at a certain threshold it goes, or really just things to save you from repeating the same action over and over again. Any type of automation that you can do there, right? And again, the first thing that I hear from a lot of people, including myself, is I don't know how to do that. Well, guess what? We live in a world today where we have access to every single bit of information at our fingertips. And now it's even super customized for us. So use Google Gemini or ChatGPT and say, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the tools that I currently know. Help me get from point A to point B. What would you suggest with the tools I currently know? And is there anything else that would help me make this more efficient and easier to do for somebody that maybe doesn't know about automation, right? Like that could be your prompt. Simple as that. Yes, it does require you typing a little bit as opposed to make an automation for me. And it's going to go, okay. And it'll make an automation that won't do you any good. So if you could be very specific in your ask of the AI, then you're going to have some automation built for you. All right. So that's the second one. The third one here are really just tools and tech. So kind of like automation, but maybe it's, man, I am working 16 hours a day and, I'm embroidering and I'm just embroidering as much as I can. And, well, maybe it's time to invest in another head of embroidery, or maybe, you're doing a lot of heat pressing, for example, and it just, loading, unloading, all that other stuff. Maybe it's time for a shuttle press, or maybe it's time for an air operated press, right? Maybe here's the other thing to think about with these amplifiers is it maybe is not right now, but if you're not thinking about this and coming up with these creative ways, so you're going, okay, I need another head of embroidery. Don't go and put yourself in so much debt that you ruin your business. But now you've said, I need another head of embroidery. Now I go, okay, how much does that cost? Here's the bucket. At what point is that very comfortable for me? Or or at what point does that make sense for my business, right? And just use your instinct there, but be working towards that as opposed to just working yourself to the bone forever and ever, right? All right. So maybe it's some templates that you can set up in Canva for your social media to speed up things, or maybe templates for designs for your customers, or tools and tech can be as simple as a checklist, right? Like I've got tools and tech for my morning routine, and it's a set of check boxes and some questions that I ask myself and a little prayer that's written down on a sheet of paper. That amplifies my time. I can be more focused, have a little bit deeper, be ready for the day a lot quicker because I took a little bit of time and I built that sheet for myself, right? So it can be that simple, or it can be, technology, softwares, things like that. The next amplifier to think about here is training and systems. So a lot of times what really holds us back isn't necessarily the amount of time, but the amount of time it takes us to do things. Well, I don't know how to do that. Okay. Well, invest in learning that, but don't just go buy the next program and spend hours and hours and hours doing things. Go out there and say, how can I learn this specific thing here? And what's the best way to do that? Right. And so instead of watching hours and hours of YouTube, really understand what you're trying to accomplish and then ask the people that are doing it. Right. And so teaching yourself, teaching your team, right? Maybe you do have some part-time help and you don't know how many pieces they're supposed to create an hour. Well, if you're doing it, how many pieces do you create an hour, right? Yes, we're not going to expect them to be just as good as us, but a slight fraction slower than that. And if it's any less, then they need more training, right? They need to understand what the expectations are. And then just systematizing things, right? If you're constantly going, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to float over here and I'm going to do this, and oh, let's try this. And well, guess what? When you're trying this and you're doing this, the next thing you know, you're changing your heat press. Oh, I messed that one up, right? And now I got to redo it. And there's added extra time. So how can you systematize the things that are repeatable in your business, right? Anything that we can do to become more efficient amplifies the time that we can put into our business, right? And that's the leverage that we need to get more work done in a shorter amount of time. And then the final one I have on my list, and again, this is not an end-all be-all list, are partnerships. I think one of the things I love, not that okay, let me rephrase that. One of the things that I love, it's not that I think. So one of the things I love most about small business owners and why I'm so passionate about sharing and looking at ways that we can fall in love with what we get to do is how industrious we are, right? We pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're going to get it done. We're lone wolves, right? But that's not true, right? We live in communities, and there are communities out there that all you got to do is ask, right? It's so odd to me that we have access to all of these resources and we're not willing to ask, right? So you can collaborate with another business. Maybe you are super busy right now with, let's go back to the embroidery example, right? And you just, man, I'm going and going and going. Well, okay. There's got to be somebody else nearby. There's got to be somebody in Entrepreneur Success Hub that can embroider, right? Set what the expectations are, have them give it a try, see what the costs are going to be. Will you be as profitable? Probably not. But will you be able to amplify your time and get more profitable business by outsourcing some of those things, right? By partnering with somebody. And it's not just a, hey, here, help me do business for me. Make it a true partnership, saying, hey, can you help me with this? And then, you know what? Oh, I know you don't do any laser engraving, for example. Oh, I do. So if you have any of that, go talk to your customers, offer it to them. We can do that together, right? So can you collaborate with somebody? Can you just bounce ideas off of somebody? If you're not part of a mastermind group, and I know I run mastermind groups, so I might be a little tainted, but I will tell you from my experience of running mastermind groups, some of the most amplified time that I've seen from people is during the mastermind calls when they're crowdsourcing ideas, and then a time immediately after that, right? I get asked all the time, oh, can we get together more often? And I said, absolutely, you should, but we're not going to get together with a structured call because you need to actually work on your business, right? So then the mastermind groups, they get together, they do co-working, they do stuff like that. So it's a partnership, right? Maybe they're not trading work per se, but there's still a lot of collaborating going on. So any opportunities you have to collaborate, come join the Masters of Success and see how much amplification you're going to get out of your business. I guarantee you, you will. Right? That's like a money back guarantee. How about that? All right. So let's talk big picture impact here real quick as we kind of wrap up towards our end of the strategy and learning, the kind of prepare phase of today's discussion here. Amplifiers are what you need to shift from that linear growth. 1 hour of time gives you 1 hour of results, right? You need to shift from that linear growth to that exponential growth, meaning 1 hour of your time, energy, effort, and creativity nets you results that are well beyond that hour's worth of time that you just spent, right? So instead of every result being tied directly to your personal effort, then when you think about it from this leverage or amplifier type scenario, your efforts start to echo out into bigger and bigger incomes, and they become like this, right? Maybe you don't get as much additional output right away because you're still building, you're still working on systems, you're still figuring some things out. In fact, there might be times where it feels like you're taking more effort to get the same results because you have to also build the system, teach somebody, train something, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that little dip, if there is any dip, which I think we just think there is because we want to just go and focus on the results. But if there's any little dip, that is far going to be made up by the increase going on the other side. Because there's also a benefit for us personally as well, right? We have what they call time affluence. And that's really where we feel like we have enough time, right? And if anybody's in that space right now, you understand that physically it's better for your body. It's proven that it's going to create more well-being. And so you're going to have more energy actually, and you're going to be able to do more. And ultimately that's going to lead to more financial wealth, is by feeling like you have enough time to continue to pursue and grow and get better at what you do each day. And also people who feel time rich are just more connected, right? Which also makes them healthier and less stressed. And from that place of being healthier and less stressed, your amplifiers come even faster because you've got more creativity. And that's the faster you're going to get to that end result that you're looking for. So let's take all that. And I want to get this into our action, what we call the pollinate phase, and action and growth here. And so this is going to be like quick. I want to get right to it for you guys. I want you guys to take this. This is probably going to be one of the shorter SBSs that I do, because the thing from here is ask questions. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I will get back to them right away. This is recorded. So, and I look at that. If for whatever reason, I don't respond to your question right away, or I don't respond to you right away, make sure that you tag me. Sometimes I do miss them. I do go and look, but occasionally they're hidden based on algorithms or whatever. So first off, do that. But this week, here's what I want you to do. Or here's what I'm asking you to do. Here's what I'm hoping you're inspired to do. I want you to find one area of your business where you're still just muscling through. I'm going to grind harder, right? And like we talked about at the beginning, pinpoint that area and accept it, right? It's not a good or bad. Let go of the labels. Once you accept it, and then ask yourself, what amplifier could I use here? Right? Maybe it's a software like we talked about. Maybe it's a helper. Maybe it's a simple system. Maybe it's just a checklist that you have over and over again. Just one amplifier that can change the result, right? And I want to invite you to kind of take a moment here for a little personal reflection. Think about some times where you've already put amplifiers into place. And let's celebrate those amplifiers, because when you celebrate those amplifiers, then your subconscious goes to work and says, I'm going to come up with more than that. I like that celebration thing. But I want you to think about where you've already amplified things you're working on. And maybe that's a tool that you've already invested in, or a person who supports you already, something like that. Really acknowledge those wins. right? And then I want you to look ahead. Where else can you plant amplifiers to create more freedom and impact, right? Use that inspirational push from identifying something you've already put in place. So, like, for example, for me, I mentioned scheduling those emails, right? I've also been working, I've got several Zapier automations that I've set up that are very helpful for me in responding to things and things like that, right? So, when I thought about that, right, as I was putting this show together, when I started thinking about this and I'm going, okay, I'm asking you guys to reflect. I better reflect too. And I was celebrating that cool Zapier program that I put together. And it immediately sparked a creative idea for me. I can take that another step. Right. And then that led to, oh, cool. That step, I'm not going to keep that step going, but here's another area where I can do something similar, just tuned for that different area. Right. And so I've already started building those automations and I will finish that probably before this airs. So, all right. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Just have that personal reflection, find one thing, look at those things. What can you do differently about it? Right. And then the beauty of this whole thing is I know that time's fixed, right? We're clear on that. We only have 24 hours in a day, but amplifiers are unlimited. Amplifiers are only limited by your rejection of them. Right? I can't afford it. I don't know how to do it. Yep. Those are all true until you say that they're not. Right? That's the whole Yoda mind trick right there. or Henry Ford, right? Those that think you can and those that think you can't. Right? So that's awesome. That's something to celebrate. They're unlimited. And when you start building them into your business and you start focusing your efforts based on that amplifier idea, you're not just getting more done, you're really creating more freedom, more joy, and more space for what really matters for you. So I'd love to keep this conversation going with you guys inside of the Entrepreneur Success Hub Facebook group. If you want to go over to osg.link/group, and I'm going to put it up on the screen here, osg.link/group. It is a absolutely free space. It's on Facebook, and it's a place where small business owners can share ideas, wins, challenges, and where we can dig a little bit deeper into topics like this, right? It's a rather small group, and that's perfect, right? Totally safe environment, non-judgmental. There's no drama. The more you engage in there, the better off you're going to be. So head over there, osg.link/group, and let's talk about amplifiers in your business, right? Maybe you're stuck somewhere. Just put that. That's okay. Right? Nobody's going to judge you, right? And nobody's going to make fun of you for it. And if they do, they get kicked out of the group. I've never had to worry about it, so I don't even know why I even bothered to say that. But the reality is that is what would happen, right? If we got to that point. And that group's not going to get to that point, right? So head to that group, talk about your amplifiers, or talk about a place where you're stuck and you could use an amplifier, and then be open-minded. You don't have to go and take every suggestion, but the limitation is really only what you put on it, right? So just be open-minded to it. Could I try something like that that's maybe a little bit different that might work for me, right? So there we go. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep this nice and short. Next week, make sure that you're joining me right here on Small Business Saturdays. And we're going to talk about how speed of your response can become your competitive edge, right? And so you definitely don't want to miss next week's show. And I'm going to let you guys get back into your Saturday here. I'd love to inspire you, encourage you, give you a high five, a pre-high five, to make sure that you think about what is an area that you could use some amplification, and what are some creative ideas that you could use to be able to amplify. It's not just a time for time switch, right? To make that an exponential growth as opposed to linear growth. So tune in next week for how speed can become your competitive advantage. But make sure in the coming week here that you're involved in the conversation over there in Entrepreneur Success Hub group, or commenting right here on this video. So thank you guys so much for spending a little time with me here today. Very much appreciate any time that you guys spend with me, and I will see you next Saturday.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke